Shabbat Shalom and welcome to our Parsha for Friday, January the 20th, 2017. And the Parsha is taken from Exodus or Shemot Names. And the first portion of the Parsha is Israel in Egypt from Exodus chapter 1, verses 1 through 22. The second portion of the Parsha is Moses, from Exodus chapter 2, 1 through 25. The third part of the Parsha is from Exodus chapter 3, verse 1, chapter 4 through 8, verse 18, the call. And the last part of the Parsha is the return from Exodus 4, chapter 4, verse 19 through chapter 6, verse 1. Thank you for being with us this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, and we hope you enjoy our discussion. And now we join the discussion. And this week's Parsha is Shemot, which means names. It starts in Exodus 1. Ve'elei Shemot b'nei Yisrael haba'im mitzrayima et Yaakov ish u'beito ba'u Reuben Shimon Levi ve'Yehuda Yisachar Zebulon Benjamin Dan ve'Naphtali Gad ve'Asher Ve'yihye kol nefesh yitz'eh Yerek Yaakov Sheva'im Nefesh Ve'Yosef Haya B'Mitzrayim. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific, and they multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them.
Psalm 105, starting in verse 26. Psalm 105, verse 26. He sent Moses his servant, and Aaron, whom he had chosen. They performed his signs among them, and wonders in the land of Ham. He sent darkness and made it dark, and they did not rebel against his word. He turned their water into blood and killed their fish. Their land abounded with frogs, even in the chambers of their kings. He spoke, and there came a swarm of flies and lice in all their territories. He gave them hail for rain and flaming fire in their land. He struck their vines also, and their fig trees. He splintered the trees of their territories. He spoke, and locusts came, young locusts without number. You eat up all the vegetation in their land, and devoured the fruits of their ground. He also destroyed all the firstborn in their land, and the first of all their strength. The first of all their strength. He also brought them out with silver and gold, and there was none feeble among his tribe. Egypt was glad when they departed, and for fear of them had fallen upon them. He spread a cloud for a covering, and fire to give light in the night. The people asked, and he brought quail, and satisfied them with the bread of heaven. He opened the rock, and the waters gushed out. It ran on the dry places like a river. For he remembered his holy promise, and Abraham his servant. He brought out his people with joy, his chosen ones with gladness. He gave them the land of the Gentiles, and they inherited the labor of the nation, that they might observe his statutes and keep his laws. Praise the Lord. This is the word of the Lord.
Amen.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done. For we give thanks to you, Lord, for this day of rest, this Shabbat that you gave to your children in Egypt. After bringing them out, Lord, you commanded them to rest and to remember this day of their freedom out of slavery. And we remember it as well and join in them. And we welcome you in our presence, Lord, as you have welcomed us in yours. And through Christ we have been made free and enjoy this rest and enjoy the presence of a God who cares, and a God who desires to be with his people. And we desire to be with you. We desire also, Lord, to be united with you as Christ has prayed. We remember your great love towards us, Lord. But forgive our sins. And we thank you for the Spirit that remains to teach us. For you and the Son have sent the Spirit to us. We give thanks to you, Lord, to Son and the Spirit. And in the name of the Christ we pray. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min sa'at. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Berei pri hagafen. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us the fruit of the vine. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Well, there are four sections in the Parsha this week. And the first one starts from Shemot. The first one is Israel in Egypt. And that's Exodus 1 through 22. And then the next part is Moses, Exodus 2, 1 to 25. And then the next section is called the Call, and that's Exodus 3, verse 1 through chapter 3, verse 1 through chapter 4, verse 18. And it ends with return from Exodus chapter 4, 19 through Exodus 6 verse 1. So the first one, which we will deal with, and I will read it because it's not that long, and it's called These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each coming with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali; Gad, and Asher. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them. And a new king arose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them, so that they may not increase. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise from the ground." So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built garrison cities for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they increased and spread out, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians ruthlessly imposed upon the Israelites the various labors that they made them perform. Ruthlessly they made life bitter for them with harsh labor at mortar and bricks, with all sorts of tasks in the field. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah, the other Puah, saying, "When you deliver the Hebrew women, look at the birth stool. If it is a boy, kill him. If it is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live." The midwives, fearing God, did not do as the king of Egypt told them. They let the boys live. So that the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing, letting the boys live?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous. Before the midwife can come to them, they have given birth." And God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and increased greatly. And because the midwives feared God, he established households for them. Then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, "Every boy that is born you shall throw into the Nile, but let every girl live." So we start with this part, Exodus, and if we could do a recap on what's happened. Last week we dealt with Joseph, and Joseph has been sold into slavery in Egypt. While there, he is miraculously made in charge of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. When the famine comes against the whole world, his brothers come down to get food, not knowing it's Joseph who they're dealing with. And eventually they end up realizing that, finding out. They go back and get Jacob. They bring Jacob down to Egypt. And here we are, that all of Jacob's son, I believe it was 70, because as it said here, Joseph was already in Egypt. So here we are, where Israel and the family is down in Egypt, and this brings us to this part. And what I'll start out, and what I think really says it all, is in verse 8. It says, "A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph." So that's where the problem begins. They forget, the Egyptians forget what Joseph did for them. Joseph saved them, but I would wonder. I mean, how could you forget someone who practically just saves your not only your life, but the lives of the people of the nation? But it happens. A Pharaoh arises who does not know Joseph. And so here's where the problem began. They start feeling threatened because in verse 7 it says, "But the Israelites were fertile and prolific, and they multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them." And that brings us to our problem. They become afraid of them. So, what do you think?
I think that they didn't forget who he was because they know who he was because, like you said, they were frugal.
Mm-hmm.
They knew if for some reason they didn't do what they were asked, that they would turn on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would be under them and become their slaves. And they didn't want that.
Oh, that's interesting, Barry. Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
So that's why he starts saying he forgot who Jacob was.
Oh,
but
okay.
He really didn't.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's I didn't think of it from that way, but I can see why you would think that way because if there's a fear.
They're real strong. They know that there are people that multiply.
Mm-hmm.
When you get people that multiply and they stay strong together,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to defeat something like that.
That's I'm speechless. I think that's a good thought. How about you, John?
I don't know. I was thinking, why would they think that the Israelites, well, Israel, would be a threat to them? There was no indication they lived in hostility at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if you see a group with a large number and you say, wait a minute, we're small and they're big, they could be a threat, but it could only, just only in their imagination. They see a problem that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to, I don't know, remedy a situation or problem that really doesn't exist, and they go about it the wrong way. How they miss what Joseph had done, the Egyptians, they write stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how that would have come about. You think they would have recorded it.
Right.
But for whatever it happened that way. But I think some insecurity is there,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that wow, they're a great number and they could be they could come to harm us.
Yeah.
And there's no indication that was the case, since that group of people was the one that saved Egypt from
Right.
a year's past. Through Joseph's administration, they acquired a bunch of land and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think that they would have remembered why the nation expanded. But I don't know. Not sure why they thought that way.
Well, they felt threatened.
Mm-mm.
And that's. I'm curious too. I like Barry's answer when he talked about thinking that they thought maybe that they would overpower them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. They said here that they thought that if war would come, they
Mm-hmm.
would side with the other people. But maybe it's something more. Maybe they did.
Or maybe they were planning something.
Yeah, maybe
They
they.
were afraid that if we plan to do this,
Right.
we know this people are great. They're a great nation. That would be a big problem for us.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it always like the thing you fear or the thing you attribute to someone else is what you yourself are thinking?
Mm-hmm.
So they attributed it to Israel that they're gonna side with
Right.
another nation,
Right.
but maybe it's they themselves who want to conquer. Like you said, maybe the Barry. I still go back to Barry too. I think that's good because maybe they see something in this nation that they think they would conquer them,
Mm-hmm.
and before they conquered them, they would conquer them by subjecting them to slavery.
Not sure how that would bring out the desired result. They were not trying to win them over.
No.
They were simply trying to be hard and cruel to them, thinking that would
Kill their spirits.
well, okay, that sounds reasonable. Kill that spirit and will remain subservient to them.
And obviously, there's no threat anymore. They don't need what Joseph had to offer. Obviously, there's no more famine.
Right.
There must be plenty,
Mm-hmm.
and so you don't need what that other person has to offer. Or you think you don't.
Right.
And it's so like, okay, we're back on top. We don't need that anymore. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that we go on, and they ruthlessly impose upon the Israelites the various labors for them to perform. Ruthlessly again, they made life bitter for them with harsh labor at mortar and bricks, all sorts of tasks in the field. And then I think this is a theme that we find throughout the Bible, even in the New Testament, even in the Brit Hadashah, where they feel threatened by the male child. They know the male child is supposed to. There's something about the male child, the Hebrew male child, because why would they then want to kill all the boys and not the girl?
Less fighters.
That's fighters.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why not both? You could reduce the population, but
Right. Yeah. Well, kill the women, and you don't have anybody to give birth. Well, I guess if men can be, but again, the theme. If we look at the New Testament and what happened to Jesus, and after Jesus was born, the part of the nativity story is that Pharaoh Herod heard that the child had been born, and so what does he do? He sends a decree out that all the male children under 2 years of age are to be killed. So we have this theme here in the Torah, but we also have that theme right after the Messiah was born, after Jesus was born. So there's a relationship here where definitely a relationship here with that, with what happened to Jesus. And then that's when, remember in the New Testament, that's when God tells Joseph to what? Take the child and go where?
to Egypt.
To Egypt. So we definitely have a connection here of something that's going on here with the them wanting to kill the male child. One of the I think in my note, what I thought was interesting was, I think in this section, the main thing that I thought was interesting, okay, is that there was a new Pharaoh who did not know Joseph. And so it begins the whole scenario of them wanting to subjugate, not only subjugate the Israelites, but to kill them. Because that's pretty drastic for you to want to kill you to put something like that in a decree where you're killing the male child.
That way they wouldn't have any. They could just control them because the males, they know the females can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
Or they may just marry Egyptian guys and that would take
Maybe,
care of it.
maybe so.
Just kill the bloodline.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Maybe so. And so, but what happens? The midwives, fearing God, did not do as the king of Egypt had told them. They let the boys live. Now, what a testimony. What a testimony. And that as a result of them fearing God more than Pharaoh, what does it say? It says that God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and increased greatly. So, what the Egyptians were trying to do to them by wiping out the bloodline, God did the opposite in letting them continue to increase and multiply. So, I think this is a lesson to us. Who do we fear? Who are we going to fear most? Are we going to fear what man can do to us, or what God can do for us? And so this is, and obviously the midwives, they feared God and knew God was more powerful than any Pharaoh. And they probably at their own lives were in danger because they didn't obey the edict of of Pharaoh by killing the males. So I can imagine that things were precarious for them, but obviously they didn't care. They feared God.
Mm-hmm. I wonder where they learned of this God to fear, and Pharaoh didn't. None of the other people did. No one mentioned it to him. I wonder where they got their knowledge of God from, and not some of the, not the Pharaoh, not his princes, not anyone else.
Where you mean where?
Well, the
midwives?
Yeah, the midwives had a respect and a fear of God.
Mm-hmm.
They had to have gotten it from somewhere. But I guess, well, maybe they associated with the Hebrew women because they did deliver birth to them. But even these midwives testified to. No, they didn't testify about God. They feared him, and they just gave them a reason why they couldn't do it.
Well, if you think of the midwives weren't Hebrew.
I was thinking they were Egyptian, but I don't tell you the truth, I don't know.
In the commentary that I have, they said that they were Hebrew midwives based on their names.
Okay.
They're saying based on the name. Now, I'm just telling you what the commentary said. And they were not. They said based on the name, they suggested they were Hebrews.
Okay.
Based on the name. Now I don't know whether that's true or not, but
that's probably why they feared them.
Right, that they were
right.
Right.
So the knowledge of God was passed down from them. But I guess I might be jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. But yeah, the knowledge of God and the love for God had not diminished as far as they were concerned over time.
No.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, tell you what, we're going with the second part, and then I'll fix the meal because we don't want to. We just go ahead and go with Moses. Moses is the second part, and let's see. Oh, it's not that Moses. We're in Exodus 2. A certain man of the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw how beautiful he was, she hid him for 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she got a wicker basket for him, and caulked it with bitumen and pitch. And she put the child into it and placed it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. And his sister stationed herself at the distance to learn what would befall him. The daughter of Pharaoh came now to bathe in the Nile. While her maiden walked along the Nile, she spied the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw that it was a child, a boy crying. She took pity on it and said, "This must be a Hebrew child." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get you a Hebrew nurse to suckle the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter answered, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me. I will pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. And when the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, who made him her son. She named him Moses, explaining, "I drew him out of the water." Sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinfolk and witnessed their toil. he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. And he turned this way and that, and seeing the one about, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the next day, he found 2 Hebrews fighting. So he said to the offender, "Why do you strike your fellow?" He retorted, "Who made you chief and ruler over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was frightened and thought, "Then the matter is known." When Pharaoh learned of the matter, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh. He arrived in the land of Midian and sat down beside a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill their troughs to water their father's flock. But shepherds came and drove them off. Moses rose to their defense, and he watered their flock. When they returned to their father, Ruel, he said, "How is it that you have come back so soon today?" And they answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." And he said to his daughters, "Where is he then? Why did you leave the man? Ask him to break bread." Moses consented to stay with the man, and they gave Moses his daughter Zipporah as wife. She bore a son who was named Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." A long time after that, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites were groaning under the bondage and cried out, and their cry for help from the bondage rose up to God. God heard their moaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. And God looked upon the Israelites, and God took notice of them. One of the, I'll start out again. One of the things that I made note of, especially about this part, is that God remembered his covenant and took note of them. And what does he do? He prepares, in my opinion, a Messiah to deliver them from Egypt. This Messiah, by the name of Moses, is one like the one Moses talked about in Deuteronomy, which we'll get to, because Moses said in Deuteronomy, "There's going to come another one like me." And I believe he was referring to Jesus or Yeshua. So here we are. This begins the story of Moses, and it tells us a lot about Moses here because he was what? A Levite. You know, the Levite, the Kohen was the priest, and the Levite had, they had charge of the temple. So that's special anyway. And so one question I had, and maybe one of you could answer this, when his mom, Moses' mother, hides him, and then Pharaoh's daughter finds him, and she knows it's a Hebrew child, but she decides to keep him. Now, I find that rather odd. I don't know if that question could be answered, but she decided to keep him and make him her son. Surely she knew about the edict from Pharaoh that all male Hebrew children are to be killed. So, what do you think about that?
She couldn't bear kids.
So she did. She
She
that
wanted a child-
overrode.
Yeah, she wanted a child so
just,
bad.
Um,
That's why she hid it from out of sight. And when it did come up of age, and she said, "Oh, look, by the way, I have a son."
Okay.
You did mention the compassion there on him, but then why did she have compassion? Could be she didn't have children. This was a long, long time ago. A guy did a study on this one, and he said that the Egyptian did worship other gods, and this particular god had to do with preserving life as opposed to killing it, and that belief was some type of a rescue of some sort. But she was following the edicts of a particular religious belief she had. That's why she saved him and not
kill him.
Not kill him according to her. Not according to her father's edict. Now, was there one pharaoh or was there a bunch of pharaohs?
Well, a lot of pharaohs. Pharaoh is a title. It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not a
Right, it's a title, but only one person has the title at a time.
right.
Okay.
As far as I know, now
Mhm.
don't. As far as I know, yes, only one person, only one pharaoh at a time.
hmm So apparently raised him up Egyptian because he was thought of as an Egyptian, but his people recognized him as Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the other folks from a ways off wouldn't know. Maybe it was the way he was dressed. I'm sure that's how they figured he was Egyptian. But the facial characteristics, I'm sure that's why Jewish people know he was Jewish.
Well,
Or maybe it
but
was common knowledge anyway.
I think I think it's common knowledge. So how big a secret can it be?
Yeah.
In a community.
And he looks more like them than the ones
Yeah, and I'm sure it got out because Miriam, his sister, was there to take him back to his mother.
Right.
And when that happened, I'm sure people said, "Now, where'd you get this child?
Yeah.
Is this your child you gave birth to?"
Yeah.
So I'm sure. They.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it was common knowledge who he was.
Mm-hmm.
But and so here, like fast forward, and even Moses knew who he was, because it says he. I'm assuming now. I don't know if the author is calling them his kinsmen because the author is describing it, or that Moses knew that they were his kinsmen. So he said sometime after that, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his kinsmen, to his kinsfolk.
Mm-hmm.
And here, and then the notes here, it said something about perhaps his mother told him his identity, who he was.
Yeah.
But I find I don't. It appears the way it's written, unless again the author is saying, "Oh, those are his kinfolks," as opposed to Moses going out. But it looks like said he went out to his kinfolk, and saw and well, I'm sure based on the next sentence, I believe he knew that those were his kinfolk because it says he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his kinsmen. Now, why would that matter to him unless he felt some affinity to them, and it really upset him?
Someone had to tell him.
Yeah.
And he wanted to defend his skin. And I guess he got to a point where he got tired of seeing them get beat.
Yes. Yes.
And he said, "This has got to stop." And he put his foot down, and that's what he did. That's what he did. What he did.
Yes, he did.
And, if he stayed, he'll be dead too. So that's why he went.
And he did that. And I like that. And so, what happens? As is always, somebody knows you did it. Say, so he sees him fighting. Says, "Are you gonna do to us what you did?" But then he's like, "Oh, I didn't think that was known." But maybe that's a lesson for all of us. It says that what's done in the dark comes to light, and there it did come to light. So he thought it hadn't, but that would be interesting to know. Well, how did they know? That's very interesting. And so when Pharaoh learned of the matter, word gets around, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh. He arrived in the land of Midian and sat down beside a well. And then here he meets. I guess maybe that was the well was a very important place because water it still is so important in the Middle East that I guess it's sort of like a meeting place or a town square, and so that's where he meets the 7 daughters of the priests of Midian, and he helps them, and then he becomes part of the family. And I maybe assumed that he thought that he was never going back to Egypt. That's why he settled in, because I like, new life. And I like the name he gave his son. Ger in Hebrew is stranger. And Sham, I said Gershom. I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And again, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites were groaning under the bondage and cried out. And their cry for help from the bondage rose up to God. And God heard their mourning, and God remembered his covenant. That's the part that struck, that I made a note. That God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he took notice of them. And that's perhaps an encouraging word for us, that God doesn't forget about us, and we think sometimes maybe he does, but there's timing involved. And obviously there was timing. Here's a nation, as we discussed last week, here's a nation being created. It's being created in the womb of Egypt. And it's going to take 400 and some odd years before this nation is completed. But God knew it was going to take 400 years. It's not like a surprise to God. And so here it is. It's almost time. The baby has been in the womb long enough, and now it's time for the birth. That's the way I look at it, because it's all in God's time that things are done. God knows when things are complete and when things are ready, because we get so impatient because we can't see the whole thing. We are in this little cubby hole right here where we only can see what's in front of us. But God looks and sees the whole picture, and so he knows just when it's time for something to happen. And here it is, and here you know that the birth pangs are happening. I equate the harsh labor with birth pangs. As we get closer and closer to the Exodus, they started being more cruel and crueler to the Hebrews. And what happens in birth, as it gets time for the birth pains get closer and closer and harder at the end, and harder and harder until so hard, baby is born. And so that's where we are. So we take a break right here before we go on to 3, and I'll set the food for us. And in the next part is called the call, where God is preparing his Messiah, so to speak. And again, I do equate Moses with Jesus, because he will be saving spiritually and physically saving this nation. He will come and remind them, because we will, in the next part, I think we'll have a lot of questions, because one thing, and I will say it right now, that Moses said to God, now, how will they know who sent me? And it's obvious that the name that he gives, that they has some significance for them, and they've obviously been passing something down through the family for them to remember who it is that supposedly is going to be coming for them. So anyway, let me put the food out, and then we can go on with the next part.
I'm going to ask you to get me some more bread.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll have to turn too far for it. My turning is not that good.
Uh-huh. So here Moses is getting ready to be born also, in a sense. His job as deliverer. He's going to be delivering this nation, bringing this nation out of the womb of Egypt, and that's no small task to do that. And so, so God will prepare him He will prepare him. While you're eating, I'll read the next scripture so you can start discussing the next part. And the next part is, again, it's called the call. And while it's a little bit lengthy, and I mean, cut it, but while you're eating, you can listen to it. And this probably will be good, okay? Now Moses, tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, drove the flock into the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. An angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire out of a bush, and he gazed, and there was a bush all aflame, yet the bush was not consumed. Moses said, I must turn aside to look at this marvelous sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to look, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, he answered, here am I. And he said, do not come closer. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy ground. I am, he said, the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. And the Lord continued, I have marked well the plight of my people in Egypt, and have heeded their outcry because of their taskmasters. Yes, I am mindful of their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians, and to bring them out of the land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Now the cry of the Israelites has reached me. Moreover, I have seen how the Egyptians oppress them. Come, therefore, I will send you to Pharaoh, and you shall free my people, the Israelites, from Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and free the Israelites from Egypt? And he said, I will be with you, and it shall be with your sign that it was I who sent you. And when you have freed the people from Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. Moses said to God, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. He continued, thus shall you say to the Israelites, Ehyeh sent me to you. And God said further to Moses, thus shall you speak to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This shall be my name forever, this my appellation for all eternity. Go and assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me and said, I have taken note of you and of what is being done to you in Egypt. And I have declared that I will take you out of the misery of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to you. Then you shall go with the elders of Israel to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, manifested himself to us. Now therefore let us go to a distance of 3 days into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God. Yet I know that the king of Egypt will let you go only because of a greater might. So I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with various wonders, which I will work upon them after he shall let you go. And I will dispose the Egyptians favorably toward this people, so that when you go, you shall not go away empty-handed. Each woman shall borrow from her neighbor and the larger in her house objects of silver and gold and clothing, and ye shall put these on your sons and your daughters, thus stripping the Egyptians. But Moses spoke up and said, and said, "What if they do not believe me and do not listen to me, but say, the Lord did not appear to you?" The Lord said to him, "What is that in your hand?" And he replied, "A rod." And he said, "Cast it on the ground." And he cast it on the ground, and it became a snake, and Moses recoiled from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Put your hand out and grasp it by the tail." He put out his hand and seized it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, did appear to you. The Lord said to him further, "Put your hand into your bosom." And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, his hand was encrusted with snowy scales. And he said, "Put your hand back in your bosom." And he put his hand back in his bosom, and when he took it out, his bosom there was again like the rest of his body. And if they do not believe you and pay heed to the first sign, they will believe the second. And if they are not convinced by these signs, still do not heed you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the ground, and the water that you take from the Nile will turn to blood on the ground. But Moses said to the Lord, "Please, O Lord, I have never been a man of words, either in times past, now, that you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." And the Lord said to him, "Who gives man speech? Who makes him dumb or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, and I will be with you as you speak, and will instruct you what to say." But he said, "Please, O Lord, make someone else your agent." The Lord became angry with Moses, and he said, "There is your brother Aaron the Levite. He, I know, speaks readily. Even now he is setting out to meet you, and he will be happy to see you. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with you and with him as you speak, and tell both of you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people. Thus he shall serve as your spokesman, with playing the role of God to him. With you playing the role of God to him. And take with you this rod, and which you shall perform the signs." Moses went back to his father-in-law Jethro, and said to him, Let me go back to my kinsmen in Egypt, and see how they are faring." And Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." Lek Shalom. Now this section, the most important part we'll get to, but let's start back at the beginning. Now Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro. Anything y'all want to say?
Then he didn't have his own flock, as some have pointed out.
Didn't have his own
Sheep.
Oh, sheep. Oh, no. Oh.
He was doing his father-in-law's sheep.
Mm-hmm.
He was a shepherd.
Uh-huh.
Cared about his animals, wanted to make sure they got fed. I don't know what else could be said about it.
No. Is there anything else? And then it says, "An angel of the Lord appeared to him. And the bush was all aflame, yet the bush was not consumed."
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So the Levites and all of those
The burning bush. A lot of people talk about the bush not being consumed and burning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know, it's just so majestic because God called out to him out of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Do not come closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place which you stand is holy ground." And then God, seems like he either reintroduces himself or reminds him. You can say it either way, because he says, he says, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a lot of the writings sometimes, you'll find it written, and I don't know that I'm an expert on explaining this, but you'll find sometimes people will say, and I don't know that God described himself like this, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Here, God was he's very specific. He didn't say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He said the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And I've seen it explained, and I think we talked about this before, that each of them experienced God in a different way because they were different people. And so that's why you can take from that that he's saying that they each had a different relationship with him. Because back to Abraham, I mean, Abraham was the first to started to believe in this one God. So that's a different relationship because it's a new one, and it's definitely new and fresh, and God is introducing himself. And with Isaac had to God tested him to see if he would give up his only son. So definitely he has a different relationship with God than his father Abraham. And then Jacob has a definite difference with God than his father and grandfather, but they all are combined to make a nation, even though they've experienced him on a different level. So that's what I got.
Some speak of the removing the sandals. I've heard some say a close relationship or intimate, but the one thing I heard that makes the most sense to me is that that ground is different because God is there. It makes it different. And that's why he wanted to remove the sandals. It's not just any ground you're standing on.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I guess this was the mountain of God, they called it that?
They call it, they said in the, that it was Horeb, but they also said it was Sinai, but they said the Har Ha-Elohim, the lordly mountain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But it's special because God's there.
Yes.
And he wanted to show him that the ground is different.
And it wouldn't harm. No harm would come to him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. He is called to deliver his people. I don't know. I guess Moses really didn't feel like he would be a good spokesman for them. What makes him think that if he gave them God's name, the people would believe him?
No, that's interesting. Now here, that's where a lot of, okay, let's go into this part. Okay, this part, okay. When God says, I have marked well the plight of my people in Egypt, and have heeded their outcry, and I'm mindful of their suffering. So here he's pleading his case here, that and then he tells them what he's going to do. He says, I'm going to bring them out of the land to a good and spacious land flowing with milk and honey. And he's going to send him to Pharaoh, telling Moses. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and free the Egyptians? And God again said, I will. And again, I think this is so powerful. This is basically the Passover story. Because God's answer to Moses each time he has an objection, God says, I will do it. I will be with you. And it will be your sign that it should be your sign that it was I who sent you. And when you have freed the people from Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. And so Moses said to God, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And here's where a little bit of Hebrew, it could be really good or really bad, but in the Hebrew, in the Torah part right here, the Torah that we have here, the first 5 books, and it has a commentary, and it also is, I'll tell you where it's from. It's the Torah by the Union of American Hebrew Congregations, copyright 1981. And they have transliterated or put down the correct name of God. In English, in the most Bibles, King James, it will say, God said to Moses, in the King James, it says, I am sent you. But in this one, it gives the transliteration in Hebrew, and it's the correct one. That's amazing. It says, Ihyeh Asher Ihyeh. And he continued, thus you shall say to the Israelites, Ehyeh sent me. In Hebrew, that's the verb for will be. And it's the future tense. And so what God is saying, if you translate it, it says, I will be that I will be. It's not I am stagnant. It's that I will be what I need to be in order to redeem you. Period. So I think I am doesn't do it justice, because I am is static. It seems like God is not prepared, that he's just right here. But the future puts so much more into it. It's so much more depth when he says that.
But why will that name, because once they've heard it, why will that name ring a bell and they say, ah, yes, this is the one we've been waiting for? Why will that name ring a bell?
Again, it's the
no, the actual way they heard it.
Yes.
From Moses. Why would it ring a bell to them?
I don't know. That's what I don't know, other than this is what I'd like to offer to you, is that there's something there. Maybe it's in the Hebrew. There's something more to it. In the English, it's not even translated correctly in the English anyway. But here, this phrase, I don't know. Maybe they've been taught that this God, that's just his name.
That's the name we're to look for.
Yes.
Or to
Maybe, yeah. Maybe that's what they're taught.
Maybe also that the Hebrew language, the meaning, they understand the meaning more than, let's say, like American translations.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the Hebrew translation, it's more direct.
Exactly.
It's more.
You're right.
Potent.
You're right. In the Hebrew, you're right. You're so right. In that that is something about the Hebrew.
There's no like going left or right. It's right in the middle, straightforward.
Exactly. And whereas with the English, the English could have translated it right. If it could just put down "I will be that I will be" instead of the present. They did. I mean, my question is, why did you translate it in the present tense when clearly in the Hebrew it's the future tense? So right then and there, that's probably a marvel that we don't have any conception of. But part of it too in the Hebrew, it has the letters for God's name in it too. It has 3 of the letters of God's name, of the unutterable name of God in it. So I don't know if that has something to do with it also.
But now I was just saying, they heard it one way. You know, translation, no translation, but they heard it
in the Hebrew
from Moses. And I guess my contention is, what made them accept that name? But maybe no one knows. Or what? I'm sure they had to accept the name. Yes, God was talking to you.
God told, and he clearly, God clearly told him to tell them that.
But I guess there's no history on that name being the name they should be looking forward to?
Well, probably it may be. We don't know. We're not students of Hebrew. Maybe
Yeah.
they did. Maybe there was something in there in the
Something
Hebrew.
in the Hebrew language is
No, I mean in the Bible itself that said they should look forward to this name.
Maybe again in the Hebrew. Maybe that's. Maybe they again reading in the Hebrew sometimes. Not sometimes, all the time. You get a different story simply because you're looking in it in the original language, and it's mathematical, and it's not like English where English is stagnant, but one letter by itself in Hebrew could mean something.
Right.
Put two together and it could mean, my goodness.
I guess I'm not answering my question right.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying also maybe when they were studying in the Hebrew, the Torah, maybe there's something in the Torah, the way it was written, that they know that this is the name of God, this is who they should look for.
Yeah, but at that time there was no Torah.
But there may have been,
At least not Moses' Torah.
there may have been, I say Torah teachings. Let's put teachings.
Teaching,
There had to
okay,
be some teachings
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that Jacob passed down from Abraham's teaching, or oral, or whatever. Because in Judaism there is the oral law.
Yeah. But the only thing that's close, Joseph said, the Lord will certainly visit you.
Yes.
So I'm sure that part captures it all. There's probably more to this visitation that God is going to come to them.
But this
And
is
maybe it's part of the translated name that confirms the visitation of God.
again, by the way, Ehyeh, I will be that I will be. And also, you just said something. What I wrote down also, because it's the same thing that happened with Jesus. Here, God is saying again, the Hebrew, the Passover story, when God says, I will come down to Egypt to get you. I am not a ministering angel. Who had to redeem us? If we look at the story of redemption, the final redemption of mankind for those who accept it, Jesus, what did he do? He came to this earth to redeem us. The Father couldn't send a ministering angel. He had to send his son to do this, to die. And so here we are again in the same scenario where God is saying, I'm coming myself down to Egypt to get you. But God again said it in the story of the Nativity, when he says, I will come myself and I will die for your sins. And I will redeem you. Because he's the only one that can. So I saw that parallel with, again, God. Here, God again is doing it. He's not sending anybody else. Moses just is in the mouthpiece. Moses maybe is like a John the Baptist. He said, there's one coming to redeem you. He's coming. Because God, he continually in this scripture, he keeps saying to Moses, there's no doubt, I am going to do it. And then he tells him to go and assemble the elders and tell them that the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, manifested himself to us. Now, therefore, let us go a distance of 3 days into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God. Yet I know that the king of Egypt will let you go only because of a greater might. And you know what I just thought of right here too? When Moses, again, we're getting a little ahead, but in Deuteronomy, he tells the Israelites, he reminds them, he says, there's another coming like me. There's one coming like me. And maybe it's the same story where in the history, they were told that there's going to be a Redeemer who comes. Moses tells about a Redeemer who's coming. And he gives a clue as to who he is. He says, it's going to be like me, but he's going to come and redeem you from your sins. And so, it seems like there is a story of, Moses certainly said that the Redeemer was coming and explained who he is and what it would be like. So maybe there was a story about who this God was, who he was going to be when he came to redeem them. And so then we have, then Moses again said, what if they do not believe me and say to me, the Lord did not appear to you? And then God gives them these things to do.
Yeah, fair question, I suppose.
And then Moses has another excuse. He says, I've never been good at talking. I just not. So God says, okay, enough, basically. You tell Aaron, he's always been good at talking. You tell Aaron what to say, and he'll say it. And because he's coming to meet you anyway. And so that's it. And Moses went back to his father-in-law and said, let me go to my kinsmen in Egypt and see how they are faring. Anything else you'd like to add before we go on to the next portion?
Not sure why I didn't tell him about the experience with the burning bush, but maybe it wasn't necessary.
Or maybe they wouldn't believe him.
Yeah, but his dad was father-in-law was a priest. So.
I'm talking about maybe the people that when he had to go back to Egypt to talk to.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I was thinking of the father-in-law first. Yeah, maybe it would just give them the benefit. It would probably make sense with Aaron. I shouldn't say make sense with Aaron being the spokesman, because Moses has been gone for, I don't know, what, 40 years or something like that, and Aaron was still with them. So some of those folks may not even have known about Moses. They may have heard about him. A few may have remembered him. But Aaron may have been closer to the people than Moses, at least as far as contacts and things of that nature.
Right. Well, okay. But again, this is one of my favorite sections because it is the story of the Passover. It is the story of the Passover, and the Passover is the story of the birth of a nation, the birth of a nation wrought by God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is just a little detail of how God is birthing this nation, and he's using a midwife. Midwife Moses. I come with all these analogies. He is like a midwife because he's gonna go and he's gonna coax this baby out of the womb. He's telling these that they're gonna be freed. And I'm sure they, after being enslaved for 400 years, they probably didn't think anything could release them from their slavery, especially from a nation as like Egypt. Egypt was a powerful nation. And so, they are, Moses has his work cut out for him. He has his work cut out for him. Now, before we go to the next section, would you like dessert, John?
Yeah, I need medicine.
Yes, the story, and I think when at Passover, I mean, it really gets into detail about the Exodus, because it has you reenacting it. And here right now, we only get a taste of it. We just are reading about it, but to actually reenact it and then have to eat the unleavened bread for a week. That's where God is. It's almost like a dance that he's doing with Pharaoh, because Pharaoh is Pharaoh thinks he's God.
Like he's trying to show up God.
Yes, because he thinks he's God. Because they considered him God. So it's almost like the from the movie The Wizard of Oz, with this guy, supposed to pretending to be the wizard. Well, he's no wizard. He has no power. And so now this pretending God is coming against the real God, the God of the universe. And I dare say that maybe that's for all of us, that we're going to come in contact with the God of the universe. And some of us don't believe that he exists.
Just like the rod that Moses had. He threw it down and Moses, Pharaoh's like, "Oh, you got that little toy?" And he goes, he gets this guy and they throw up 3 sticks. And he thought, "Oh, my 3's gonna take your one thing out." And they ate all 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He was like, "What is that?"
Exactly. And you know what I think? There are some things that magicians can do by sleight of hand or whatever. It's not real.
Illusion. That's all. It is.
Exactly. But when it comes to
tricking the eye.
exactly. But when it comes to the real stuff, like the death of your firstborn, like killing every firstborn, magicians can't do that. So we got to find out. Okay, I'll read this and then we'll discuss it. The return, it's from Exodus chapter 4, verse 19 through chapter 6:1. And it said, "The Lord said to Moses and Midian, go back to Egypt, for all the men who sought to kill you are dead." I'll just put a caveat in here. Remember when I believe God said to, I think God said it, or the angel said to Joseph, when not Pharaoh, what's he called in the New Testament? He was not Caesar, but he had died. He told Joseph when to go back to come out of Egypt.
Herod.
Herod had died. Okay, so Moses took his wife and sons and mounted them on an ass and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. And the Lord said to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the marvels that I put within your power. I, however, will stiffen his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. I have said to you, let my son go that he may worship me. Yet you refuse to let him go. Now I will slay your firstborn son. At a night encampment on the way, the Lord encountered him and sought to kill him. So that Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched his leg with it, saying, you are truly a bridegroom of blood to me. And when he let him alone, she added, a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. The Lord said to Aaron, go to meet Moses in the wilderness. He went and met him at the mountain of God, and he kissed him. Moses told Aaron about all the things that the Lord had committed to him, and all the signs about which he had instructed him. Then Moses and Aaron went and assembled all the elders of the Israelites. And Aaron repeated all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and he performed the signs in the sight of the people. And the people were convinced. And when they heard that the Lord had taken note of the Israelites, that he had seen their plight, they bowed low in homage. After Moses and Aaron went out and said to Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may celebrate a festival for me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. They answered, the God of the Hebrews has manifested himself to us. Let us go, we pray, a distance of 3 days into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he strike us with pestilence or sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you distract the people from their task? Get to your labors. And Pharaoh continued, the people of the land are already so numerous, and you would have them cease from their labors. That same day Pharaoh charged the taskmasters and foremen of the people, saying, you shall no longer provide the people with straw for making bricks as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, but impose upon them the same quota of bricks as they have been making heretofore. Do not reduce it, for they are shirkers. That is why they cry, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid upon the men. Let them keep at it and not pay attention to deceitful promises. So the taskmasters and foremen of the people went out and said to the people, thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you any straw. You must go and get the straw yourselves wherever you find it, but there shall be no decrease whatever in your work. Then the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the taskmasters pressed them, saying, you must complete the same assignment each day as when you had straw. And the foremen of the Israelites whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set before them were beaten. Why, they were asked, did you not complete the prescribed amount of bricks either yesterday or today as you did before? Thus the Israelite foreman came to Pharaoh and cried, why do you deal thus with your servants? No straw is issued to your servants, yet they demand of us make bricks. Thus your servants are being beaten. When the fault is with your own people, he replied, you are shirkers, shirkers. That is why you say, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Be off now to your work. No straw shall be issued to you, but you must produce your quota of bricks. Now the foremen of the Israelites found themselves in trouble because of the order. You must not reduce your daily quantity of bricks. As they left Pharaoh's presence, they came upon Moses and Aaron standing in their path. And they said to them, may the Lord look upon you and punish you for making us loathsome to Pharaoh and his courtiers, putting a sword in their hands to slay us. Then Moses returned to the Lord. O Lord, why did you bring harm upon this people? Why did you send me? Ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has dealt worse with this people, and still you have not delivered your people. Then the Lord said to Moses, you shall soon see what I will do to Pharaoh. He shall let them go because of a greater might. Indeed, because of a greater might, he shall drive them from this land. And in this section, I think I will, well, I'll sum it up later and when I think it's a summary, but we go back to the beginning. And God again is giving Moses instructions. He's giving him step by step what he wants him to do. Step by step. He's saying, go and do what I said to do. And when you return, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the marvels I put within your power. And then, and let them know I'm going to slay his firstborn. And then we get to a part, and I'm not really sure that where God tries to kill Moses, I think. Because of the circumcision, it said. So I'm not sure what that means. The commentary talks about it being I guess that commandment that they should be doing that, the circumcision, and it hadn't been done. Obviously his sons weren't circumcised because it said that Zipporah circumcised, cut off her son's foreskin. That would take a bigger Hebrew scholar than me to understand that.
How did she know about it? Maybe she got it from her dad?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But it says God tried to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Or it wasn't, it said that in the commentary it says it wasn't clear, the text wasn't clear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he goes on, where God tells Aaron to meet Moses in the wilderness, and they meet up, and they began performing, doing all these things, going to talk with Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, to show you how arrogant he is, to show you that he believes he is God, he says, "Who is the Lord that I should heed him and let Israel go?" And that's very arrogant. And he says, "I do not know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." I think that's so arrogant. And it goes to show you just that he thinks he's God.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Moses and Aaron tell them that what God told them, that they want Israelites to go 3 days into the wilderness to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
They convey that. And Pharaoh said something interesting, very, that we were talking before. He said the people of the land already are so numerous, and you would have them cease from their labors. That seems an odd statement to me.
Mm-hmm. That was just the men, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you think you got so many, it wouldn't matter too much.
Mm-mm.
For 3 days?
Yeah. You think they have more main laborers, that'd be more work they can get done.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't seeing that. They were seeing that way a threat for them taking over.
Exactly. That he sees them as a threat.
Or losing control.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. Losing control.
Losing control of them, that's exactly right.
Yeah. If he, I don't know, gives in this time, the next time he gives in a little bit more and more and more, and sooner or later, he's out of position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think when Pharaoh was there for Joseph, he was not all that hostile to God or what as Joseph interpreted the dream.
Mm-hmm.
He accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could have said, "I don't know anything about this,"
Exactly.
and ignored him. But this one gets the message not from a dream, but from an individual ambassador of God's. He ignores it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That is
so,
a good point. That is a good point. Two different pharaohs here.
yeah, 2 different pharaohs, 2 different encounters.
One is arrogant as all get out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he's, again, it's part of the birth pangs. He's increasing their work, increasing the Israelites' work, the birth pain. And then it's a question when the foreman goes and asks for relief and he doesn't get it, and then he accuses Moses and Aaron of coming to make their jobs harder.
These were the Israelites.
The foreman.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure I could see me doing this too. Moses probably has second thoughts and he goes back to God and he says, why did you bring harm upon the people? Why did you send me? And I guess Moses thought it was going to be instantaneous, that God does this deliverance. And he says, ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he's dealt worse with this people, and still you have not delivered your people? But this is the part that I think sums up the whole passage. And I can imagine after Moses goes to God in anguish, feeling that he's caused his people to suffer more. And then I believe God calms him down by saying to him, you shall soon see what I will do to Pharaoh. He shall let them go because of a greater might. Indeed, because of a greater might, he shall drive them from the land. And then say he would just carry them away like, no, he would drive them out. He'd be so willing to get rid of them after God does what he's going to do. And Pharaoh heard that, known that, or really believed that here's the God of the universe and he will have his way, and this is chilling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chilling statement. And so it also, it's almost like, oh gosh, we're waiting for the next part. Gosh, what's going to happen? What is God going to do? How is God going to get these people out? And this man who thinks he's God, and he won't let them go. He just won't let them go. What is God going to do? What is he going to do?
Now, I was thinking one other thing here too. But why would Pharaoh let him go? He's got lots of free labor.
Mm-hmm.
And to let him go, then you gets rid of the free labor. So then he should not. He would not. The only way he would get rid of them is that they become more trouble than they're worth.
Yes.
Or they become. Well, yeah, okay, I'll say it again. More trouble than they're worth.
Mm-hmm.
They become very harmful to him.
Yes.
And it takes away a lot of the things from him, and that's one of the reasons he drive him out. Why give away something that's productive and useful and helpful?
Right.
Unless it becomes obsolete, more trouble than it's worth.
Right.
And that's what has to come about. That people have to become more trouble to him
than they're worth. More trouble than they're worth, and I guess God has to do like 10 things. There's 10 plagues. And you think after the plague of the we're getting to heaven, but the one where they turned the water into blood, Nile into blood. I mean, you would say, well, whoa, that will be enough, but no, it's going to take more for them to heed God.
No, it takes more than. We're thinking of it as a bad habit or a sin.
Yeah.
Now, just because you got one sin doesn't mean you're going to turn away from all the others.
No, that's true.
You may have, people mention multiple sins. They may have drugs or, I don't know, smoking or drinking, gambling. And once those habits become more trouble than they're worth, you don't get the satisfaction. You're not going to let them go. But then they become costing you more and more and more, and you want to get rid of them. You want relief, and you ask God to deliver you from those vices. He sometimes does one by one or all at the same time. But at one time, all those vices were pretty nice to have around.
Yeah.
Then they become very expensive, very dissatisfying. Then we call out to God to deliver us.
I know.
Yeah.
We call out, yes, we call out to Him. We call out to Him. I think we did a very, go ahead, Barry. Sorry.
Most people, when they call out to them, they only call out to them when they need something.
You're right.
They don't call out to them when things are good.
You're right, Barry. And I think that's what we're trying to do by meeting here on Shabbat. It's calling out to Him, acknowledging Him for what He's done for us, and that we don't have to wait until catastrophe happened and all of a sudden started really trying to get to know Him. Said, no, every week I'm going to meet with you, where you said you would meet you every Shabbat, and so that when catastrophe does strike, we know Him so intimately, we don't worry about it.
Yes, they still forgot the words of Joseph. The Lord will certainly visit you.
He will visit you, yes.
And when they, for years, they didn't call out for this visitation. Well,
yes.
Some 400 years later, they called out for the visitation.
Right. After they're made to, they said they were, after hard labor, they started calling out to them, yes.
Right. Now, what Barry said, when things are going right, we don't call out.
Right.
But they got a heads up from Joseph that God was going to visit. You'd think they would say, year after year, God, when will you visit us? As opposed to waiting for the hard times to come and say, well,
start calling out
As
to
men
him.
start calling out. But yeah, it's true. It's a habit that's built into all of us.
But
Things are going well, we
we
tend to ignore, and when things go bad, we call out.
we call out to him. But I think your recent situation, John, that sometimes you only can get to know him when you are in a pain or just some unbearable situation there. It just wipes away all inhibition or whatever. You really don't care about stuff. The only thing you worry about is being close to him. And sometimes it takes that pain or that discomfort to get you past those inhibitions so that you can be closer to him. So pain has its purpose in because it had its purpose here, because it certainly drew them close enough to start calling out. And it must have been such anguish, because it said God took note of them. So it must have been a really gut wrench. And I think next week I will do this, look in the Hebrew and see what word they use for call out, because I do believe, let me just go back here and see if I can find it real quickly, because I think it's just not a call out where it says, I call your name. It's a call of anguish. I do believe it is. I don't think I'm making that
I was
up.
reading something when it said God looks for the poor at heart, dismayed, depressed, because they seek Him more.
Yes.
Because they have their trust in Him completely.
Yes. Exactly.
If a person's not like that,
Exactly.
they're not going to every day be on their knees praying.
Right.
Or the one that's think they have it all, they're not gonna think twice about doing it.
I agree. That's a good point. That's a good point. Because it's something about, and maybe that's where this Pharaoh ran into this problem. I don't know that they were the same. The famine hadn't happened yet with the Pharaoh with Joseph, but this one right here things must be real plentiful, because I don't think he would have had this attitude if things weren't plentiful. So you get real arrogant when things are plentiful, and you figure, you can even get arrogant and to the point where you figure, I don't need God. I got this all by myself right here.
And starts taking it away.
So it is something about pain that causes you to draw closer to Him. Something about it. And the Israelites were evidently there. And also, again, I go back to it's time. It is God's timing. It is time, because it's time. The birthing pains are increasing, so it is time for the birth of the nation of Israel. So we finished this, and so we're in oh wow, it's a cliffhanger. What's going to happen? How is God going to deliver His people? And the Parsha for this coming week, on Friday the 27th, is called, let's see, I know what it's called, Va'era, and it's called Ve'yedave Elohim El Moshe Ve'yomer Elav Ani Adonai, and that's His unutterable name, the Yud He Vav He. Ve'era El Avraham El Yitzhak Ve'el Yaakov Ve'el Shaddai Ve'Shemi Adonai Yud He Vav He Lo Noda'ati Lehem. God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. That's Yud He Vav He, the unutterable name. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but I did not make myself known to them by my name, the Yud He Vav He. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners. So that's a meaty part right there, where God has some new names here. He has some new names. He's introducing Himself. He did not introduce Himself as by his name, the Yud Hey Vav Hey. Very interesting.
So I'm on chapter 7.
That's chapter 6, 6, starting at verse 2, and then 7 through 13. But it will have, let me tell you how many parts it has. Okay, the first part is the second revelation. And then the next part is confrontation, Exodus. And then the last 4 plagues. And that ends, it'll be chapter 9, verse 35. Ends at chapter 9, verse 35 in the plagues. So, it's gonna be another cliffhanger next week, because we're gonna be talking about the plagues and how Pharaoh reacts, and again, the birth pains. How God is bringing forth, birthing this nation of Israel from the belly of is Egypt. And so I think Thank you for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next week. Shabbat Shalom.